Next up, we have another panel discussion. It's about why collaboration is key to the future of DAOs and NFTs. We've got 5 guests, I think. So Sam Whitaker, Claudio Schneider, Stephen Xoao, Leila Hurstel, and Tom Krzystek. Thank you.
Okay, can everyone hear me? Awesome. So, welcome guys. What an exciting day for NFT.London. And I'm going to be the moderator today. For those who don't know me, I'm Leila Hurstel. I'm the Chief Metaverse Officer at Verse Estate. We're building a hyper-realistic metaverse with its own economy, and we'll have our own functional native token. And today, I'm so glad to be joined by these incredible panelists. So I should leave you guys to introduce yourselves in a minute or so.
Hi guys, my name is Tom, and I am a founder of a Swiss company called Metacourt. Metacourt started in 2019, but my crypto roller coaster ride started in 2015 from Ethereum mining with a few of my friends when it was at the staggering price of $2 per ETH. So then we followed up with our company, started a few years back. We are involved in Web3 implementations, and the most successful one being Bolly's, which is NFT gaming platform, with the collaboration and partnership of Crypto.com. We also have a few other projects going on in the pipeline, including DAO Launchpad for startups, as well as Influencer Accelerator, where you can sell your NFTs through social media.
Hey everyone, nice to meet you all, and it's been a pleasure to speak to you all. And I'm Stephen. People know me as Xoao, and in Web3. And I run the Crypto Skulls DAO as a community manager. And there's a few skulls in the audience, so shout out to Crypto Skulls. This is what they look like. I have a Crypto Skulls on my back on my t-shirt, but I'll hand it over to Sam.
Hi, I'm Sam. I am the CEO of Fabric Labs. I'm currently guest lecturing in a course at the Fashion Institute of Technology in New York. It's the first Web3 NFT course. So I'm focused on what I'm doing. Our tagline is innovation through education. So trying to build things while also growing the Web3 community as much as possible.
Hi guys, my name is Claudio. I have 2 Web3 companies in Switzerland. I'm actually a neighbor of Tom, but the first time I met him for the first time here. That's why events are great. You can get to know your neighbors. One is a Web3 studio developing smart contracts on Ethereum and public EVM sidechains, and the second one is Decap, which is an investment advisory boutique for digital assets.
Thank you so much. Wow, there's so much experience in this room. That's really great. We're in for a treat for this discussion. So I'm just gonna start by saying how we live in an era where the internet is being entirely reshaped. And now more than ever, companies and brands need to redesign their digital presence. And it's through the use of tools such as DAOs, NFTs, and cryptocurrencies that the power is shifted back from the tech giants to the consumers. And that now we all have a unique opportunity to own and monetize our data. And in my personal opinion, not only is Web3 kind of the natural evolution of the internet and technology, but it's also a social movement. So actually, let's start with Claudio. Based on your experience, actually, could you please explain to us what are the Web3 ethos, and how is basically DAOs an important incarnation of the Web3 space?
Yeah, I think important is the basic blockchain infrastructure we use, and one thing there which is really important is permissionless. You don't have to ask somebody to use a tool, or you're not are bound to the goodwill of a centralized entity who holds your asset, but you own them in your self-custody. I think openness, interoperability are very important points for Web3 to flourish. Otherwise, and if you don't take care of these points, otherwise it's just getting a different, kind of world or version of Web 2. So it's really important that we take care, for those things. And we're talking about collaboration here, and collaboration between the teams in Web 3 is very important, because otherwise we end up with a very fragmented space, everyone in his own corner, and users are not really in the power of using their assets, their identity across different platforms, but just in one little corner. And I think we talk about that later, why collaboration is so important.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And now consumers in the space, they don't want to just be consumers that brands, sell them a product to. They want to invest their time and money in communities which are really focused on the consumers, and they want to collaborate with each other and have a say in the future of the company, and really feel like stakeholders of the brand. So actually this question is for Sam. And what do you think about basically this paradigm shift, and why is it so important? Why is collaboration so important in DAOs and in the Web3 space, in general?
So DAOs definitely, and Web3 in general, that's a big piece. So personally, I think we're at a very precarious moment in Web3. We're still early enough on that a lot of the tenets of decentralization and ownership of property, you kind of took some of my points there, Claudio, so I'm going to have to rework. But ownership and self-sovereign identity, these things that are all so important to us because we're early adopters, they're not necessarily going to be as important to other people. The larger corporations, they're definitely not as important too. So we can go one of two ways. We can, Web3 can kind of be just an extension of Web 2 with better technology. We can keep giving up our data, we can keep giving up our privacy, and it'll be pretty much status quo. Or we can go the other route and maintain these tenets of decentralization and ownership of our data, and have Web3 be something really different and really cool. And I think we all believe in that, but we're gonna have to work our asses off for it. I mean, bottom line, everybody here has to take it seriously, and we have to make our products that we build completely frictionless. So I've heard a lot of people talk about how they want to put a Web 2 front end on a Web 3 product, and that's what we need to do. People need to be able to go in and have an easy experience. I think 10 years from now, people are going to look back at us and say, wait a minute, you wrote down 24 words and you put it in a safety deposit box and that was all of your money. Okay, boomer. But yeah, we've got to work together to figure out what mass adoption is going to look like, and that's collaboration. There's such a massive market out there that's untapped. There's plenty for all of us. So you don't need to be, and the tribal instincts that we all have. I have a Hedera hat on, but I work with plenty of other chains, and we're all in it together. So the more you collaborate across Web3, and especially in DAOs, we're going to learn lessons from each other. We're going to find best practices and things definitely to not do, but only through working together. So it's up to everybody here and whoever watches this going forward. Put the work in, get to it.
Yeah, and just picking up on your points about having 24-word seat recovery phrase. I have some all over my house, so definitely interoperability and user-friendliness, I think, in my personal opinion, is key, actually, for Web3 technologies to be mass adopted. But anyways, that's a question actually for everyone, but mostly Tom. Maybe you would like to explain a little bit more in depth, how DAOs truly work, and as well how over time they will replace traditional organizations, and actually how they can leverage DAOs to build communities.
I think first we'd like to know how many ETH you got at $2.
And I sold at 4, so. Yeah, so DAOs are a very interesting topic, and I will not go into the definition of DAO because we probably all know what that means, but it's simply said internet community with shared account across them. So it's very interesting how to run it and how to run it efficiently. And it has its own challenges, especially now when it's not fully regulated. But it's very nice and interesting. When you start DAO, definitely there are a few aspects how to approach it, and the most important is blockchain and technology and smart contracts that govern the whole decentralized organization, and this is the starting point. If you don't make it right, then you cannot govern your treasury in a most efficient manner, and if you have also flaws in your smart contract, then you're exposed to any wrongdoing inside your organization. So this is the first and the most valid point. And secondly, are also the legal implications, because now DAOs are a good way to avoid taxes, for sure, but that won't be a case in the future, and there are initiatives to push them into more organized entities. If you start running DAO as startup and you want to have VC investment, it's much easier if this DAO is somehow legally introduced in some jurisdiction rather than not, unfortunately. So it can be in a space as fully decentralized governed community, but companies also like these initiatives to have some legal background on top of this. That's why there are some initiatives in the United States where you can register your DAO as LLC company. So I would say the tech aspect, the legal aspect, and of course community aspect, collaboration with other projects, that are the few things that you should start when creating your DAO as a startup. And if you do not have the knowledge, especially technical knowledge about this, then you probably should seek for help and collaboration with projects that can help you out creating the whole technical framework.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. Like what you were talking, I'm in the process of incorporating a DAO right now in the state of Wyoming in the US. And I'm documenting all of the steps that I go through and the lawyers I'm talking to and all the, everything that needs to be done to do it correctly, so that I can tell other people about it. And it was just a few months ago, I forget the name of the DAO, it was based in California, and there was legal action against the product. And since it wasn't incorporated correctly, they went after the members who had doxed themselves because it wasn't technically a legal entity. It was just a bunch of people who essentially owned stock in this product. So you have to do it right, and it's another great opportunity for collaboration. If you're doing it, if you make a mistake, tell everybody about it. If you do something good, tell everybody about it. So we all have we're writing the book on this stuff right now. I mean, this is an entirely new concept, DAOs. So let's, the more we work together, the better we'll be able to have kind of a centralized framework.
Yeah, I completely agree with both of your points. And actually, one thing I wanted to know, so for those in the audience who are actually looking to form their own DAO, like what would you think would be the first step? Like where should they start?
I would say legally. Whatever country you're in, figure out the legal framework for forming a DAO. I mean, even if there isn't an actual legal framework, just form a company. In the US, it would be an LLC, but something to limit both your liability and the liability of the people who are going to be a part of your DAO. To your point about talking about VC funding, I mean, if you're going to go out for funding, they're going to look for, have you done this correctly from day one? I think obviously building the community is the huge part, but look at the legal issues in whatever country you're in and make sure you're compliant.
I would even take one step back and be very precise about the mission of the DAO, or what you want to achieve. And then go to the lawyers, because it's going to save you a lot of money. That's the first point. And my experience was with MiBits DAO, where I'm in the steering committee, is that we had from the beginning, and that helped us. We were pretty early in 21, and we had this clear mission that it's a development fund for the MiBits ecosystem. So it's you're not getting anything back by participating in the DAO. It's not like an investment, but it's purely a treasury that we built to invest into integration APIs for the Meebits NFTs. And that really helped us from the beginning, even though there were a lot of community members that joined the DAO were asking for returns and dividends and things like that. We had to repeat this mission over and over again, but it really helped us from the beginning and made it much easier. And if you start a DAO without a clear plan and you're very broad in terms of what you want to do, it's going to be hugely complicated and you're going to have a lot of legal costs. And it's also, you cannot cover every aspect of it anyway. So try to trim it down. And if you have another big idea in 2 years, you can launch a second DAO with another two big ideas, but just keep it slim.
Yeah, I agree. And as well, the mission and the values of the DAO is what keeps the community members together. But just to go back quickly to the point that Sam said, I mean, I do agree that having the proper legal framework is important, but doesn't that go against the point of decentralization, kind of? Like, because if we have to implement, like, traditional legal structures in our DAOs, isn't now, like, the perfect opportunity to kind of reshape the industry and challenge the current legal frameworks?
I think the problem is that there aren't legal frameworks right now. So
Exactly.
especially in the US, I almost wish at this point they would pass bad laws, because inaction is actually worse than bad action right now. If they pass bad laws, we could look at them and say, okay, this is wrong, we need to fix it. But since there's no laws and there's no framework, we don't know what to do. So to your point, I would love it if we didn't have to, but you have to protect yourself and you have to protect your community members. And right now, the best way to do that is some kind of legal entity, at least in the US. Obviously, some other countries are much more open and progressive with their Web3 policies. But yeah, I mean, you just have to protect yourself at this point, so.
No, yeah, I totally agree with that. And definitely it has to be adopting to some type of framework. But I think now is the perfect opportunity to create our own frameworks and come up with new, like, special frameworks just for DAO entities, like, all around the world, so that we can as well collaborate with traditional organizations. But like, beyond actually all the technical requirements and, the governing and the tokenomics of DAOs, one question that I had actually for Steven is, like, what would be some tips that you have for day-to-day community building and community management in DAOs?
Yeah, so I'd say I'll give you 3 takeaways, guys. So first, I think the most important thing, I think Claudio touched upon that, is really the, really aligning on the mission and this, like, the values that your DAO, your community has, right? So you can really lead by example, because as a community manager for Crypto Skulls, as a leader, you need to have conviction, right? You need to have conviction in your belief in what you do. So for us, it was like history, right? We believe in history, and that's why we are curating a museum, for example. We want to work with all the other projects, like, CryptoPunks and, Meebits DAO and all the, OG projects, right? But how do we get there? So it's really leading by example, leading by conviction, and then try to, like, give that conviction to others, right? So that your community can also feel like they're part of it, part of, being a leader, whether they're, submitting ideas or a proposal for a project. It's all about inspiring others and then empowering them, because, as community managers, we're just, we're just serving them. We're just serving them. There's a lot of skull holders here today, and and I want to just empower them to do things, right? The second thing, right, is really the essence of communication. It's about transparency and openness. So anything that you do on a day-to-day basis, whether it's like, communicating an airdrop or communicating, a real live event like NFT.London, right? It's all about communication and how clear your message is, and making sure that everyone can be, included, feeling, being part of it. It's like so important. And then the third point is really about collaboration, which is the topic of this discussion. And, we believe in Crypto Skulls DAO that, I think not only are we passionate about history, right? We believe that, this is going to be it's never going to go away because it's history, right? We're creating history, by forming DAOs, like Sam said. We're creating, future history. So what do we want to pioneer? Like, how do we want to create this future? And it's all about collaboration. Whether we work with, future projects, or we work with projects like Puny Codes back in 2011. It's all about really understanding the timeline and history and paying, homage to the provenance of NFTs and making sure that we educate how important legacies of NFTs is, and how do we preserve it, and how do we educate the future for generations to come. So yeah, those are my 3 tips for running a DAO.
Thank you so much. And yeah, I agree with that. Like, a lot of the community members are joining the DAOs because they want their voices to be heard, and they want to take a part in the mission and contribute something meaningful. So I think that's key to creating the main DAOs.
And I think what you said earlier about the legal framework and how we can decentralize it, it's kind of the same thing with a DAO in general, in that you need some centralization to get to decentralization. So the phrase I always like to use is that a DAO has to crawl, then walk, then run. If you just jump in and say, okay, everybody who has a token gets to vote, it's going to be a disaster every time, because it's cat herding, trying to get people together, and what constitutes a quorum. And so you need, like Steven as a community manager from the beginning of the project, it's some centralization, it's some management, it's some, how do we keep the lights on, and for a larger DAO, who pays the taxes, or who pays the electric bill if it's a physical building. But the goal of a community manager, the goal of the initial centralization, is to eventually pass that, like raising a child, passing that control on to the DAO. And how we do that, I mean, it's tough. It's going to be, number one, it's going to be different for every DAO, but even if we had we don't have a centralized way to do that. So collaboration is what it's all about. If you're running a DAO, if you're a part of a DAO, especially you learn, even in life, you learn more from your screw-ups. So when you make mistakes, tell everybody about it. So somebody else maybe doesn't make the mistake, and find ways to learn the lessons so that we can have some kind of framework going forward.
Yeah, I actually agree with that point, and we only have like 2 minutes left, but just to kind of... so one thing actually I wanted to speak to you guys about, I'm getting like a lot of controversy because like, for example, our DAO, like we have a CEO, and a lot of the members, like they're really kind of debating, like there's a lot, this has like a huge backlash. If you put a CEO, like what do you think about having a CEO and a chief, like a C-level team in DAOs? Like, do you think that goes against the point of DAOs, or?
I mean, to Claudio's point, I think it's all in how you set up the DAO and how you initially set out the parameters of what that DAO is going to be. So if it's set up that way, then okay. But and what kind of power the DAO has.
I agree. You need at the beginning. You need some centralized leadership, or some team, some steering committee, which is taking things on and proposing and structuring everything. Because and then it's very well said, and you let it go over time. And decentralization is tough. At Meebits DAO, we have a delegated voting system with founders. Founders get tokens allocated, delegated by the members, and then times Meebits is the voting power you have. And the person who set up the DAO has, I mean, he's basically running it at the moment, and we're working on it. But there's no smooth way, and you also need, it's also difficult to keep members engaged in voting, because it's an effort, right? And if you have only one token and you have a little weight, it's difficult to structure it. And there are a lot of discussions, but that's great. I mean, we're learning and trying to find our way.
So I could go on like forever about this discussion.
I think that means we have 20 minutes left. When it gets to 0, it's 20 minutes left.
Yeah, there's like 18 seconds left now.
I don't want to see what happens when it gets to 0.
Should we try and debate everything like
Are they
before
going to
the end
tackle
of
us
the
and
time?
pull us off? I think I could take it.
You can. Oh my God. But anyways, thank you so much for sharing your insights with us, and hopefully, like at some point in the future, we will get to redo this conversation and go like further in the topic, and that's time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.